That's my cue, I think. All right, it is now 6:30 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting of the Community Development Committee to order. While this meeting is being held in person, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in the meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand, but stay seated and we will call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also, please be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. All public comments are limited to 3 minutes. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. Please contact the administration offices at 913-676-8350 with any questions or concerns. Ms. Fulks, please call the roll.
Hayden Champosi,
Here.
Vaughn, here. Loudon,
Here.
Ryder,
Here.
here. Schmidt,
Here.
Josie,
Here.
Carpenter Davis.
Here. Our first item of business tonight is public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment now on an item not on our agenda tonight? Please note public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Seeing none. All right, we will move on. We have one item coming forward from the Planning Commission for consideration of a revised preliminary development plan for the lanes at Mission Bowl Phase 2. Mr. Scott, will you please make your presentation?
Thank you. This is a convoluted project that has consumed the better part of my life the last year. But so 5399 is the address for the lanes phase 1, which is now completed. We issued a certificate of occupancy last week for them. I think we have a ribbon cutting next week. The developer, the Sunflower Development Group, has long been interested in doing something with the vacant parcel of property, essentially parking lot just to the east. And they came to the city probably about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, with a proposal to build a 5-story, 96-unit apartment building on that parking lot. That was considered by the Planning Commission and ultimately approved by you all. They have been struggling with parking, and it's not so much them, it's the group that they're buying the parking lot from. It's the Brain Group who owns the office building on the north side of Martway, the former Mission Bank building. And if they were to sell the parking lot, they would be underparked. Nobody uses the parking lot. We all know it's unused parking lot. It's virtually vacant. The handful of cars that are on there on a daily basis, we've all surmised, are probably folks that are using the transit center. It's been a little bit more occupied the last couple of years because the contractors that have been working on the lanes have been parking there and doing a lot of their storage materials and so forth in that lot. But anyway, it kind of throws a funk into a situation with the office building. One of the stipulations with the ordinance that approved the second phase of the lanes on the parking lot was that they have a shared parking access agreement where the two parties share 25 parking spaces. So tenants of the office building can use 25 parking spaces on the phase 2 lot during the day and vice versa in the evening for the residents of the phase 2 building. And then I think probably last summer, we approved an agreement with the Brain Group where they could utilize 15 spaces on our park and ride lot, which is immediately to the east, kind of sandwiched between this lot and the former Wendy's building. But they're still in kind of need of parking space. So the Sunflower Development Group proposed adding 15 additional on-street parking spaces on Martway. So they had a 7 with the original plan, and that was primarily for the tenant space on the ground floor. They're now going to add 15 more for a total of 22 parking spaces. So this, of course, will kind of take away the original landscaping and the curvilinear path of the trail that was going to go in front of the building, kind of emulate what was in front of phase 1. And that's what triggered a revised preliminary development plan, because that's considered to be a significant change in our zoning code, the reduction in landscaping. So they submitted a revised preliminary development plan in December, and we reviewed that and gave them comments, and we went back and forth with them a couple times. And then they submitted the plan to us to be presented to the planning commission at last week's meeting, March 24th. A public hearing was held at that time. There was nobody from the public that spoke for or against this. So it was just the applicant and the planning commission. The planning commission did ask some questions about the trail. The trail will still be there. It'll still be the 8-foot wide trail it is right now. It's just going to be in front of the building. And so that space will be parking with the trail in front of the building. The applicant is, proposing some park benches in front of the building, as well as some fairly good size landscaping boxes with kind of, I'll say sort of vertical type plantings in them. They'll kind of help to break up the wall. It's essentially that building is going to have ground floor parking. They'll be hidden behind a kind of a breezeway type wall to sort of screen it, but it's still kind of a big blank wall. So they're trying to break that up as much as they can. Really, other than that, nothing changes from the original plan that was submitted and approved by you all back in 2023. It's just the on-street parking. So that's kind of all outlined in the staff report. There's different pictures of the old and the new and some explanation about parking and kind of some of the variances in our code or code language. This is one of the things that we can talk with the consultants about. As you all know, we're working on updating our zoning code. We've been talking about parking and possibly having parking maximums as opposed to parking minimums, which is a little bit of a different kind of way to look at parking. So, but those are still very preliminary discussions at this point. So anyway, this will all be before you in 2 weeks for your consideration. So if you have any questions tonight, I'd be happy to answer those.
I have a question. On page 41, under the assumptions, there was a comment about pavement markings will not be placed as these street-based. There were no existing. What I kind of don't understand what that means.
So there was a crosswalk. There's actually 2 crosswalks in front of the parking lot right now across Martway. One is a crosswalk from the parking lot to the office building. And you can hardly notice it, so faded and the paint's so worn down. But that'll obviously be taken out with the on-street parking. And I should say that the Brain Group is proposing to make improvements to their lot as well, the office building parking lot. And so they'll be adding additional parking to help address the issue. It's an important note that I forgot to mention. But in doing that, they're going to take out that little landing spot on their property where the crosswalk would go. So that would just essentially go away altogether. The other crosswalk is closer to the northeast corner of the property by the transit station. And again, you can hardly see it. So we've asked them, that was something I caught literally when I was writing the staff report. So they did submit a change to their drawings that show an actual ADA ramp in front of the tenant space in the northeast corner of the building. And there's a clear crosswalk to the transit center. So that will be there. And I think I answered a question from one constituent earlier this week or last week. We're intending to make improvements to Martway in a few years. That's in our CIP plan, our capital improvement plan. to repave, resurface that section of Martway between Knoll and Roland Drive. And at that time, we're going to be looking at, curb and stormwater curbs and stormwater work, as well as possibly putting in a sidewalk on the north side of Martway. So that'll create more of a landing opportunity for people that want to cross Martway. Some places, instead of just landing in the grassy area or in a parking lot, there's actually going to be a sidewalk there. And then there's possibly opportunities for other sidewalks kind of along Martway. So provide a little bit more access for folks in that area.
So one more question. So if the Brain Group sells that building, will that cooperation between phase 2 and the Brains, I mean, is there something that guarantees that that's going to continue in perpetuity? Okay.
And so that cross parking access agreement I was speaking of would be something in perpetuity that's recorded with the county. And that would go with the property, depending whoever owns it. So,
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, let's go Brian and then Ben.
One thing I do just want to clarify, I think I'm hearing this correctly, but it does sound like we are adding the parking not to meet an actual demand, but just to meet the minimum requirements of the zoning code. Is that accurate?
I would think it's a little bit of both. It's kind of
Little bit
the
of both.
demand, the tenant, the Brain Group is struggling a little bit with meeting the demands of their lease agreement with the tenants of their building. So their tenants are expecting a certain number of parking spaces available. So that's a little bit what's driving this.
Okay. I thought I had heard that at the beginning that like they're not being used as they are. So, and that's what leads me to believe if they're not being used,
Yeah.
then there's not really a lot of demand for it. Because the reason I ask is I obviously am just going to have a little bit of an issue with, I think, subtracting from the green space to devote to parking if there's not an obvious immediate demand for the parking. That's why I ask.
Yeah, their primary tenant, the Waltz Teacher Group, has been bringing employees back. Their employees were kind of working from home for a long time with COVID. They're trying to bring them back. They've actually acquired a couple smaller advertising agencies, so they've been adding staffing. And then they took the space where the bank itself was on the ground floor, kind of at the back of the building, and completely refurbished that a couple of years ago and turned it into kind of a studio, if you will. So they film advertisements there and do some shows, cooking type shows, and then they have a little bit of an employee event space. So they've been making quite a bit of improvements. And so they're a little concerned they're gonna have enough parking to kind of meet all of that. So,
I think, and when we had the discussion about the lanes phase 2 the first time and kind of the parking, you may recall that they thought that there were likely some people who were parking in their parking lot using the transit center instead of the transit lot. So our thought is that potentially as these things sort of all come into play, that there'll be some shuffling around of cars that there's still spots available in the transit center. We can push back there in some different places. So people are taking the path of least resistance, obviously.
We installed a sign this summer at our park and ride lot that says park and ride, a big sign. Probably have seen it, just to really kind of drive home the point to those who use the transit center. This is the place to park.
Okay.
So,
Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is obviously squeezing the trail a bit. You said it's still gonna be 8 feet at that narrowest part.
8 feet, yes.
Okay.
Which is
then
what it
you-
is currently.
Right, okay, fair enough. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, it turns this from something that's partly landscaped into a pretty bleak monolith. I wouldn't mind bringing in the suggestion for some art on this wall if we can do it. I don't know what the feasibility is. It'd have to be flat, but
I kind of suggested that. I didn't really get much of a response back. So,
well, it'll make me more likely to vote.
yeah,
yes, I'd say.
might be a comment you want to bring up next week or 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, Leah.
And I just want to reiterate, the transit parking is number of spots is going to remain the same then?
Yeah, there's about 20 plus spaces in that lot.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not going to change at all.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
Okay, I'll be back in 2 weeks with more, if you have more questions, so.
Great. Hmm. We do not have any public presentations tonight. No, it's planning commission. Yep. Wow, I got it thing right. Okay. We do not have any public presentations tonight, therefore we will move into our action items. Our first action item this evening is for the acceptance of the meeting minutes from Robin Folks.
Thank you. Draft minutes of the March 5th Community Development Committee meeting were included for review and acceptance in your packet tonight.
Any questions, comments? Otherwise, I'll take a recommendation.
I recommend acceptance on consent.
Great, thank you. Our next action item this evening is for consideration of engineering services task order for the 2026 residential street reconstruction projects from Brent Morton.
Thank you very much. So this is for our 2026 residential street reconstruction projects. The city dedicates about 2 million annually for residential street reconstruction. The way we pick these streets, the driver to it is PCI data, which is pavement condition index. And then also geotechnical analysts, basically core samples of all the residential streets through town. They kind of show that they weren't built to the standards 50, 60 years ago. Is how we put a program together that fits within the budget. The 2026 residential street program will include the following streets: 54th Street, Lamar to Dearborn, 54th Terrace, Horton to Dearborn, 61st Terrace, Woodson Road to Knoll Avenue, and 63rd Terrace, Beverly Drive to Knoll Avenue. The proposed streets all need full reconstruction, so that's going back with a cement treated subgrade, 8 inches of new pavement, curbs, gutters, driveway approaches, because the street changes a little bit when you totally tear it out. So just making sure everybody's stuff gets put back for residential. We also do stormwater. We chase the S&P funds as much as we can. So almost all our pipes are rated. If it's not, we'll go out and re-inspect it to make sure we're getting all those dollars back when we submit for reimbursement from them. So it's basically the rating scale, but also getting that CMP out of the ground. So even if it's rated good enough, sometimes we'll swap that out for a concrete pipe just so we get the longevity of the road and we're not back there digging it up. The task order, complete design services, survey, data collection, project management, they're available during construction. And a big driver to some of this cost this year is we have very limited right of way on some of these streets. So just comparing it to like a 55th Street, there was about 20 to 25 TCs had to chase some driveways. These, it could be upwards of 60 to 70, just because the right of way is so tight on some of these locations. Hopefully that's not the case, but that's kind of a driver in some of that cost. So staff is recommending approval with Burns and McDonald for design services for the 2026 residential street program, an amount not to exceed $326,724.50. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Leah.
So I know that we get the pavement condition index every certain number of years,
It's
correct?
been on like a 4-year rotation right now, so I'd say we're probably looking at doing that again in 2026.
Okay. Just wondered because my street is not the same as it once was with all of the action with the new water pipes. And then I also wondered, I mean, is this something that we put out for other engineering firms to bid on, or did we just go with Burns and Mac?
No, so we went through recently this year, we have 2 on-call engineering services and we go out for qualifications. So it's not on necessarily dollar amount, it's their qualifications to do the work. So Olson and Burns and Mac are our on-calls. This is our first go with Burns and Mac. They just got selected this year to be our on-call. So we try to divvy it out evenly, I guess.
I have a question. In here, it says that we're including improvements or repairs to stormwater systems. Do we have any sense for whether that is trying to meet like future standards for stormwater? Is that something where we're trying to like account for the climate events that we keep seeing, or is it with current standards?
So we're designing right now to a 10-year storm. Going to a 100-year storm is very difficult, just dollar-wise, trying to get the streets done. if there is a known flooding issue, like on this year's street reconstruction on Beverly and Mellhaven, we knew there was a flooding issue. So we looked at the hydrology and we upsized all the stormwater. But if there's never been a known issue in that area, we might be adding a few inlets, but it's basically going back as existing. It might change, like we're getting the pipe out of people's yards if we can and keeping it in the right of way, but not big swings in the stormwater system.
Since you mentioned Beverly, I just had a question. Are all the flags that are up there now for utility relocates ahead of 2025
Yes.
construction? Okay.
And
I
so,
was getting asked about that, so I figured I'd jump in.
yeah, there's about 4 utility companies doing relocates up there and they all got to have dig tickets. So they're going to probably keep coming. I always, if residents say anything, I mean, they got to renew those tickets every 2 or 3 weeks now. So if they need to mow their grass, just pull them. They'll call on or renew the ticket and they'll come out and flag it. So they can always pull the flags if they need to. Yes.
My question is, how do we coordinate with the utilities so that they don't come back and tear up the street that's just been done?
So we're very good about that. I should have mentioned that. So part of these design contracts are utility coordination. So as soon as we get preliminary utility plans, they go to all the utility companies and we work with them to get everything relocated. Gas, water, and JCW are very good in Johnson County. And every street we've done's basically gotten a new water main, a new gas main the last 4 years we've been doing this. JCW sewer's pretty deep, so they usually line their stuff ahead of us. So if they can't get to it, there's usually no open digging for that. So it's just kind of on their lining schedule. But anytime we're around their infrastructure, we encase it or replace it and they reimburse us for that. So the goal is never to have anybody come back and cut in that street. My goal is 10 years, but that's hard to do sometimes.
And your heart hurts when that happens.
It does.
Yes. All of ours.
Yeah, this is something outside the peripheral, but have we heard that any SMAC dollars are gonna go down in the next 3 to 5 years?
So I don't know if they're gonna go down, but there's more people asking for them. It's so the dollars I think are gonna stay the same. It's just the allocation is gonna get spread wider, I think.
Competition.
Yeah.
So they have some pretty strict formulas that when there wasn't there weren't as many requests for the dollars, you could kind of turn a little bit of a blind eye to making sure they allocated certain things. But now that those rules come into play a little bit more. And I think on the maintenance, so the maintenance piece is new with this street. You may recall that before we couldn't access any county dollars in order to do that. And that's been a tremendous help for us in our annual street maintenance program, but they won't upsize.
Right. So they
You have to
won't-
go back at the same, kind of going back to Councilmember Hayden Champosi's question about, we can't upsize with those dollars. So if we need to upsize a pipe, that's an expense that is on our dime.
And they won't, you can't add to it. So they're only replacing existing infrastructure. So if you need to add another 200 feet of stormwater system, that's 100% city dollars. But not knocking the program. It's great. It's helped us out tremendously. So.
Well, that just makes me wonder, because I know that the county is doing a county-wide stormwater assessment and funds are coming from that. So why wouldn't that trickle down to streets and the stormwater underneath the streets if they're looking at stormwater from a larger scale? Does that make sense?
I mean,
I think they switched to a watershed approach as opposed
Yeah.
to each individual city or community submitting their program. So they're trying to take that more comprehensive watershed approach and how the projects get allocated within the watershed. So I think they haven't had the stormwater, county stormwater funds are generated through a dedicated sales tax. And so the funds haven't grown significantly. They have carved out the program in the last several years, and they've added the maintenance component as well as kind of the new project as in areas of the county where you have new development, and some of those projects are more expensive. Yeah. And what? Oh, and home buyouts. Yes, they will fund home buyouts as a part of that program.
Anything else? I'll Take a recommendation.
I recommend acceptance on regular agenda.
Our next action item this evening is for consideration of a task order for the 2025 bridge inspections, also from Grant.
Thank you very much. So this is kind of a routine item. It's required by KDOT, Kansas Department of Transportation. Any bridge over 20 feet in length has to be inspected every 2 years and put into their inspection system with ratings. So they have records of all the bridges in Kansas. It includes culverts, channels, anything crossing a road over 20 feet in length is considered a bridge. So we've got 9 bridges within the city limits of Mission. So this contract's inspecting all those bridges, the deck, the footers, the creek channel itself, wing walls, just anything that would have to do with that bridge coming into having problems or where it was no longer drivable or accessible. The summary for this, for bridge inspection reports from 2023 are attached to this action item. It also highlights some of the recommendations that come from this bridge inspection that have been completed in-house and externally. That portion is not required by KDOT. It's something we kind of asked for just so we have a certified professional looking at our bridges and can tell us some of the stuff to help us add longevity to those bridges because they're expensive to replace. Usually we don't see a rating lower than 6 on our bridges in town. Our 2 worst bridges are Reeds and Outlook. And we were able to wrap those up into the Rock Creek Channel project, which is county funded 50%. So those bridges are getting replaced in 2026 and should have a long shelf life on that. So it's very great. We were able to tap into those funds, fixing the creek and replacing those bridges because they're probably $1 million a piece if you just went out there and did them on your own. Olson is one of our on-call consultants. They haven't done this work for us yet, but they are pre-qualified through KDOT. One of our old on-call consultants did this work for us before. Olson's perfectly capable of it. And I also, just in my head, GBA did it for 10 years, maybe getting another set of eyes on the bridges is probably a good thing and comparing that data a little bit. So I think it's a good thing. So staff's recommending a contract with Olson and Associates for bridge inspections in amount not to exceed $18,000. Happy to answer any questions.
Where are we on the bridge that connects Mission to Wyandotte County? That's always been one that's been concerning to me because Wyandotte County has refused to pay. Who does the inspection on that bridge?
We do.
And so if there's any faults or any problem with it, it's still incumbent on Mission to pay that?
Right now, yes. They've always,
Because that bridge connects to them too. I mean,
But it's not the whole bridge. Right? The section,
it's just a piece of it.
it's the piece of that bridge. Essentially, the piece that connects to the long span over the highway is not ours. So in our bridge inspections, we're only looking, and where would you say the limit?
Turkey Creek.
Turkey Creek.
Yeah, just
So right where it goes over the creek. But then the rest of that bridge is not our responsibility in terms of inspection and maintenance because it's,
you'd think there'd be some coordination between the 2 entities because if one fails and the other one's okay, something's still wrong.
well, they're 2 different bridges. Yeah. So, I mean, KDOT's responsible for the one over I-35. It's in Wyandotte County, but that's a KDOT bridge.
Okay.
So they would be the ones doing that inspection. Because
And-
KDOT is responsible for that bridge and Wyandotte County or Unified Government is responsible for the traffic signals that were just installed. So there's some agreement in there
So
for
if there's
that.
a failure on that part of the bridge, who pays for that?
On the 35 bridge, it's KDOT. On
KDOT.
our bridge over the creek, that would be on us.
I mean, we can see if we can get a bridge inspection rating. I'm sure they're published for that bridge, but I believe that bridge was replaced with some federal grant dollars. The Wyandotte County did not participate, right? It's been about 20 years because it was right when I came to Mission.
And I was
Um,
on and we had the mayor go talk to them and they
Right.
refused.
So that section of the bridge is probably, it's reaching 20 years in age, but we'll see if we can get a copy of the KDOT inspection report on that.
Yes.
That road actually is very bad right on that that I-35 bridge. It's got holes and you could probably, it's really bad. So I guess that my concern is that KDOT, can we talk to them? I mean, it needs to be repaired.
So the road is unified government, the bridge is KDOT. So the asphalt out there is, and we've turned in reported concerns and gone through their process, and it's hard to get them out there to do anything about it.
Well, how can you divide that up? The bridge versus the road?
Well, the concrete is the bridge and the asphalt pavement is the road.
Structure underneath.
Well, the top deck is KDOT's responsibility but the asphalt is not KDOT's responsibility. I know that giant pothole you're talking about, and I've sent about 20 emails and
I mean, neither of them are great, whatever.
Yeah. All right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, but aren't they gonna make improvements once the plant is done?
I don't know that for sure. Because they wanted to widen the bridge, but nobody would swing for that when they put in the signals. It's such a high cost, so
With the improvements to the Nelson treatment plant, there's a lot of truck traffic. My understanding was that they were gonna at least go back and kind of repave it once that project was finished, but I could be wrong with that.
it might be Fox Ridge, like in front of
The
the
bridge
plant,
itself, yeah.
but I'm not aware of that.
Or at least have more frequent inspections. If you're getting a lot of major trucks going across there, that's gonna cause potentially some issues, so. Thank you for Mission stepping up.
So,
I don't want to collapse.
so if the wastewater people are using that a lot more, could the county not take some responsibility for that bridge? Because they're the ones that wanted those lights put in
Yes,
for that, because they're doing that construction.
so we can definitely have that conversation, and they'd be open to it. They've been very good to work with, so
I think they paid for the lights.
they paid for all the lights, and then they just handed them over so they don't have to maintain them. But they'd be open to it, so we can have those conversations.
Anything else? Otherwise, recommendation?
Recommend acceptance on consent.
Thank you.
Oh, I guess you have.
One more.
You're not going
Thank you
anywhere.
so much. We're gonna keep you up.
It's construction season.
Consideration of easements for the 2025 residential street reconstruction project, also from Brentwood.
Yep, so kind of like we discussed for the design agreement, this is for our 2025 reconstruction projects. There was 8 easements required, TCEs, that's just temporary construction easements to give us access for 2 years to complete the project. And the reason those TCEs carry for 2 years is we carry a 2-year maintenance bond on all our projects. So if we do a drive approach at a residential house and it cracks, we still have the ability just to bring the contractor back in, get that stuff fixed, and we don't have to do all the paperwork again. So all the homeowners, property owners all have the easement documentations in their hands. We're anticipating to have everything signed and ready to go by the council meeting on the 16th. There was only one permanent drainage easement needed with these projects, and that's fixing the culvert behind 62nd Street. That is 96-inch CMP that's already filled once. So getting that fixed right where it's good for another 75, 100 years, hopefully. So staff is recommending to accept and record the required easements for the 2025 street project, including authorizing the city administrator to execute the easements on behalf of the city. Once they are executed, we will record them with Johnson County and proceed with construction. Be happy to answer any questions.
No, otherwise I'll take your recommendations.
Recommend acceptance on consent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brent.
If you want to, go for it.
Yeah, if you have a question.
Everybody look at me.
I just looked down that way. Someone down there. was All right, our next action item this evening is for consideration of the 2026-2030 CARS 5-year program resolution from Stephanie Boyce.
Good evening and welcome, Wanda. It's good to see a full dais up there. So tonight, bringing forward our 2026 to 2030 5-year HARS program. Again, we're talking about the county and the funding that we receive from them. And this funding is through a combination of state gas, tax dollars and county general fund, revenues, and it provides fundings to cities to construct and maintain certain eligible streets. Those are listed in this packet. Each year, the cities submit a 5-year plan, to the county, which projects are selected, for funding up to 50%, of the construction and construction inspection. So design is not included in that. Right away or utility costs are not eligible either. And each year we have to pass a resolution, adopting this plan. Let's see. And the final commitment of funds doesn't happen at this point. So this is just kind of an outline of what we're looking at for future, programming within our city, within those eligible roadways. So just a brief outline, shows the street segments that we're looking at, for 26 through 30. And then, further, explanation, is in the packet. So for 20, I'm looking at this and for some reason, okay. 2026 is Johnson Drive, Metcalf to Lamar. I'm not sure. That should, somehow the numbers got off. 27 is 51st. Oh, no, you're right. 26. Okay. That's Roland Park. Sorry. We also have a lot of surrounding cities. And so we have a couple joint projects and that just threw me off. So our main one for 2026 is the Johnson Drive, reconstruction project. And that includes, the full depth pavement reconstruction, the Hawk pedestrian signal, spot replacement of curb gutter, sidewalks, ADA ramps, street lights, pavement markings, and stormwater infrastructure. That one, the total cost for the project is $12,698,934. Total cost, total cost minus the $6 million, and the almost 2 million in CARS fund is about $4,810,000. And then 2027, this is a joint project, that Roland Park is leading. This is 51st Street from 396 feet west of Knoll to Cedar Street. A small portion of Mission falls within their project. And that just includes, I believe, a mill and overlay, base repairs, and some asphalt resurfacing. A tiny portion is going to hit Mission. Our cost share for that is just over $6,000. And then 2027, we're back to our project. This is on Knoll Avenue from Martway to 67th Street. Proposed improvements include a UBAS surface treatment, pavement repairs, spot replacement of curb, gutter, sidewalk, ADA ramps, pavement markings. This is a joint project with Prairie Village, in which the city of Mission will lead this one. Let's see, the total project cost is $952,676. We're contributing about $311,000, and Prairie Village $159 after CARS funding. Then 2028, we have Martway Street from Woodson Road to Roland Drive. Those improvements include a 2-inch mill and overlay, pavement repairs, stormwater repairs, spot replacement of curb and gutter, sidewalks, ADA ramps, pavement markings. You see the total cost there is just under 1.5 million, with our contribution being about 783,000 after the CARS funding. 2028 Johnson Drive at Ash Drive. This is another joint project, with Roland Park. That's the replacement of the traffic signal, which is outdated and past its useful life. That total cost is 520,000. Our contribution would be about 142,000 after the CARS funding. 2029, we have 51st Street from Lamar Avenue to the eastern city limits. This project includes full depth pavement reconstruction, replacement of curbs, sidewalks, ADA ramps, pavement markings, pedestrian signal upgrades, stormwater infrastructure will be replaced as well. Total estimated project cost for that is just over $3 million, with our contribution being a little over 1.7 after CARS funding. In 2023, Martway Street from Woodson Road to Metcalf, excuse me, proposed improvements include a 3-inch mill and overlay, base repairs, stormwater replacement, spot sidewalk, curb and gutter replacement, pavement markings, and looking at replacing 2 traffic signals. And that total estimated project cost is about $3.6 million. With our contribution being about 1.9 million. One of the pages in here has the cost kind of comparison from the previous year's program to the current year. So every year we have our engineering firm, one of our on-calls, and Olson did this for us the last few years. They provide us the cost estimates for each of these projects loosely based on the project scope that we just went over. And the budgets change year by year based on, they add inflation costs for every year programming because we know that happens. So this is just a summary of last year's total project budget compared to this year's, the cost difference, and then notes that are in there. I had the wrong information in there, and so I printed off another sheet. Laura?
It's at your place, the updated, and we'll
Yeah.
we'll
and I'll-
update the packet tomorrow.
So you can see just the kind of cost difference between last year's estimates and this year's estimates and the reasoning why. I would say most of them have increased, and that is due to increase in inflation for future year programming, and increase of design and construction inspection. 51st Street, that one also includes full depth reconstruction and modifications to the signals. So those are the increases. This has already been submitted to the county. Again, there's no costs associated with it at this time. As we plan for future year CIPs, things will get modified. We're working together as a city, internally staffed, to look at other items like our bike and pedestrian study, the Rock Creek Corridor study, to see how we can implement those improvements into these types of projects. Some of them might not be included right now, but as we meet monthly, we will start incorporating these into those cost estimates. So you may see some of these cost estimates increase over the next couple years. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, so with the bike ped stuff on Martway, for example, that's sort of not really like a cars topic. We'll look at that on our own and figure out how to tie that in. Is that what you're saying?
No, well, we haven't really incorporated it into the CARS projects,
Okay.
but I believe the CARS funding does cover
Oh, good.
the bike ped and
I was wrong
vehicle.
today.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Yeah, no, that's great news.
She
Glad
was
to hear-
probably wrong because I probably gave her the wrong information.
Okay.
No,
Yes,
bring
and
me
I was
good news
wrong.
every time I ask about something. That's great. Thank you.
And it might not be accurate, I'm not sure, with the different sheet, but I had a question on 51st Street. The version in the packet talked about removing the signal at Dearborn. Is that still part of the plan?
We would just look at if it's warranted and
Okay.
look at possibly replacing it with maybe a pedestrian signal rather than, possibly like a hawk signal.
Okay.
Something that would keep safety there. We'd also look at what comes back from our traffic safety action plan through our Safe Streets and Roads for All.
Yeah, because I just had questions there with the grade and the speeds that we
Okay.
see on 51st Street, because that's at the top of a, maybe the biggest hill in the city.
Yeah.
And it's also a bit of a blind left turn out of that neighborhood. Like you can't really
Nothing's set in
See with the
stone.
grade change. So I just had
Yeah.
questions about that one, but yeah.
Nothing, yeah.
Thanks.
Just looking at different routes that we can take.
And I think, Mayor, you also had raised a question. We were talking about this year's CARS project, which was 63rd Street, and looking at Knoll and where 63rd and Knoll come together and sort of traffic. That
Yes.
will be incorporated, and we'll do some of that evaluation when we look at the Knoll Avenue project in
Knoll.
2027.
Okay, great.
I'll take a recommendation.
Move it to regular.
Great, thank you. Our final action item this evening is for consideration of an updated Operation Greenlight Cooperative Agreement, also from Stephanie Boyce.
Sure. So Operation Greenlight is a regional arterial traffic signal coordination system managed by the Mid-America Regional Council. It's to help kind of get traffic through in coordination with the other traffics. They use communication devices, cameras to kind of help and see what is going on. If there's any malfunctions, we can get to those quickly. And the city has been part of Operation Greenlight since 2010 and is one of 26 participant agencies over the Kansas City metro area. Last year with the Fox Ridge project, the traffic signal at Lamar and Fox Ridge was added as part of Operation Greenlight. And so this new cooperative agreement adds that intersection into the cost share and increases our contribution by $800, I think it is, per intersection. So for 2 years, it's $6,000 paid each year, $3,000 annually. So it's just kind of the formal process that we need to go to since we are in the program and to make sure that we can pay Mark for that. Yeah, it's an additional $800. Yeah, actually, I think it's budgeted $6,000 annually, but the annual cost is only $3,000 right now. So, yes.
Yeah.
Just, I don't want to make a big stink about this right now, but I'm kind of looking into this and reading a bit more about this project and trying to decide if I think it's sort of a false economy for climate action stuff or not. I think certainly cutting down on emissions is a potential upside, but also keeping traffic flowing smoothly. The other edge of that sword is, making it harder to get about on foot or on a bicycle. So I haven't really made my mind up on this, and I think there's a lot of reading to do yet, but I would like to take this to regular agenda. Thank you.
Anything else? All right. That concludes our action items. We have one discussion item this evening, an update on Powell Community Center membership pricing and Sunday operations from Laura Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So you may recall back in 2023, we completed the Powell Community Center feasibility study and business plan and was officially adopted. And in that feasibility study, there were a significant number of observations, findings, and comparisons from regional competitors, and then ultimately gave us a series of recommendations. So since 2023, we've been actively engaged in pursuing those recommendations and completing as many as we can as quickly as possible in an effort to help the Powell Community Center achieve a 70% cost recovery, which is our ultimate goal. And obviously, if we can increase beyond that, it's even better. But there were 4 kind of overarching goals that I wanted to remind council of. Number 1 was operate the Powell Community Center using a business model that tracks all elements of use, participants, revenue, and expenses to meet operational expectations of city leadership through all available funding sources to achieve that 70% cost recovery goal. Maximize program options to activate spaces in the building, which has been a priority focus of ours for the last few years. Increase the use of recreation programs that generate more earned income to support operational costs and attract a wider variety of users. Update and add new recreation-related programs and events that reach all age segments in Mission and the region to attract them to experience the Powell Community Center. And the final one was to update existing amenities in the community center when needed to support user needs for an exceptional experience. Not just a good one, it's got to be exceptional. So some of the highlights of the recommendations that we've gotten adopted. We've increased pickleball fees to align with our daily fees. We consider the Powell Community Center an access fee. And so if you were there to use a court, activity, showers, strength and fitness equipment, that's access to the facility. And we tried to unify that messaging and get one singular fee. We've adopted more key performance indicators, measurements. So ones that we were doing prior to the feasibility study were attendance, activity participation rates, revenue, expenses. Some of the newer ones are net promoter score, space use percentage, which has been very helpful for us, dividing up program rental and maximizing the use capacity of certain areas. Churn rate, which is a newer one that we've just started digging into, and that's balancing kind of the turnover in membership, retention versus new members and how they affect each other. And then revenues per member. So we've got some great data that's helping us make some of these decisions. And then we've increased our recreation program for some of the target markets that the feasibility study said we were missing, namely toddlers, teens, whole family offerings. So we've really leaned into Start Smart programming year round instead of seasonally. We've doubled down on more swim lessons, junior lifeguards, safe sitters, some of the programs that kind of activate the younger teens into participation and recreation. And then obviously cooking, art, pickleball lessons. We've seen a lot of participation in our senior population, and we're trying to activate some of the younger patrons to participate as well. Increase in communication and marketing, daily fee alignment with value received in regional competitors. That's at the community center as well as the MFAC. We've also adjusted rental fees with the value received and with regional competition. Summer camp registration fees, we try to keep a pulse on the increased costs of field trips, bus routes, snacks, all of those increased elements, and try to keep pace with that annually so that it's not a huge change every other year or longer. We just hired a business manager last year. Membership services lead position was, it's essentially Janet's replacement position. And so we recently hired that. Touchless pay option, which has streamlined a lot of our membership registration and point of sale, which has been wonderful. More robust equipment, and then obviously signage that kind of separates us from Mission Square and, you know, brings a little bit of color along Martway as you're driving by. Just say, oh, that's a community center. That's not just another business building or whatever. So digging into the PowerPoint a little bit, just wanted to highlight what the next steps in the feasibility study are. So this kind of breaks it down into a 2025 quarterly view. And this is high level. But since last fall, our team's been anxiously engaged in updating some of the data from the feasibility study that was completed in 2023. So we've seen that Matt Ross fees have increased. We've seen other regional competitors' fees have increased. And so the information we're going to share tonight is just an update of what the feasibility study included. But what's interesting for you all is that our last significant fee increase for the Powell Community Center was 2010. So before that, it was 05, 08, 10. There was like a regular schedule. And then for whatever reason, that kind of stagnated right around the 10. And it may be because MFAC became a focus and all of that investment and maybe increase in fees at the MFAC. But for whatever reason, that was the stopping point. So we're significantly behind. We'll show a slide a little bit that shows exactly how far behind, but estimates are about 50% lower than our regional competitors. So there's room for us to engage our patrons and say the value is there, and we just want you to understand and try to recuperate some of that. So in connection with that, we're going to, in Q2, so first week of May, we're opening the Powell Community Center from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's a pretty big change. That's exactly 1/7 more than we operate now. And so we've been deep in the planning process and trying to coordinate all of the needed elements there. So we are also, right now, our membership includes fitness classes. And you'll notice some of our competitors don't anymore. So we are limiting the class offerings now to 2 a month. So we're not taking away we are taking away the unlimited, but we're giving the option to test out a fitness class because we feel like that's important, especially with some of our demographic and our participation rates are relatively low. We feel like giving them an opportunity to test a class without charging them immediately is a good option. And then we're going to do that for insurance as well as the daily pass, paid daily pass members. So if we review this, Q2, Sunday opening, first week in May, we're also in conjunction with that going to introduce some new programming on Sunday. So we'll have additional not lap lane, drop-in time for families. That's one of the requests that we had from families with smaller children. There's not enough swim time. So Sunday just provided the opportune moment to introduce that. We're going to also increase swim lessons. We've got an art and cooking class that's going to be introduced on Sundays. The idea is to keep it themed seasonally and then culturally, so that there's almost like a natural progression through the year. And I think that'll track well with our patrons who love that, but then that'll also help us with the marketing and communication plan because it's unique to our region and will help spread the word pretty well.
I want to just interject there because I was really proud of the conversations that staff was having and looking at that Sunday programming, recognizing that people may not, like they would come to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, a fitness class or something like that. Their schedules are going to be more sporadic on a weekend. And so offering something where they felt like there was still value to come one week, and then maybe I can come back in a couple of weeks if my schedule allows. And so I think they've given a lot of thought to how to keep it interesting and keep people engaged when we're competing for time.
Thanks. So you see there in the purple, adjust the direct pay member dues, implement class fee for insurance members, as well as the direct pay members. So retention campaign is going to begin in earnest in tail end of Q2. We'll pre-test some of the ideas for our new member offerings and then push a new member campaign, and then expanded reservation capacity on Sundays. So we have a history of turning away rentals on Sundays because we haven't been open. Now, depending on how it aligns within the day, we have rental groups like church groups. We've taken birthday parties, certain work and wedding celebrations, if there isn't too much of a gap from when that first rental is there. And we've always had a basketball league running on Sunday. And so we've had staff there. And if it aligns well within, our staffing levels, we've kind of plugged in rentals as it works. And so what we'll be able to do now is give Natalie the opportunity to kind of unleash the hounds and rein in a whole bunch more opportunity to rent out the facility, because there's no doubt she's turned people away in the evenings in particular. So that's pretty exciting. You see Q3, we'll do a mid-year evaluation. What's working, what's not working. Price increases, kind of the feedback from patrons on how they took it. and, you know, just generate participation in our fitness classes, because if we're offering this new pay to participate, will we see it trend down? Will more people be interested and actually register? And then obviously the insurance member upgrades, seeing how that impacts whether or not we see a dip in membership or insurance member participation at our facility, or how that affects, you know, the long term. So we're also going to evaluate how marketing is resonating with our target market. I'm particularly interested on Sunday, the new programs, and seeing how much participation we get initially versus over the course of a month or two. And so I'm excited for that. And then obviously, like I tell any of our patrons that come to us with feedback, everything is being evaluated. Your feedback is valuable to us, and we do take it into consideration. And so we'll continue to underscore that message. And then in Q4, year-end evaluation, prepare for the new year promotions. I think what's great about this, we have a referral campaign. We've never really done that before. And so the idea is to lean into that KPI of member churn, right? If some of these increases are going to drive patrons away, those that stay with us really see the value in staying with Mission and the Powell Community Center. And they're going to be our cheerleaders. So let's give them an opportunity to get the word out. And we'll do that in the form of, one idea was bring a PAL, P-A-L, to the POW, P-O-W-E-L-L. Finding what value propositions they're open to. Maybe it's guest passes. Maybe it's a free 2 weeks or a free month as part of, and extended onto your membership in return for, this number of referrals. So those are ideas we're floating right now. And we're anxious to get feedback from our patrons. So you see kind of the overarching goals: improve our marketing, engage with our patrons, make sure they are having an exceptional experience, and then making sure that we're reaching the target demographics that have been overlooked over the last, decade. So next slide.
Question?
Yeah.
Tell me more about your retention campaign. What does that look like?
So the idea is new members and advertising, communicating to new members takes about 5 to 7 times more expense than it does retaining the existing members. So finding out what is important to them and finding out why they want to cancel their membership. And so when we get that initial week or so of communication from patrons on why they're canceling their membership, creating a quick powwow or huddle and seeing if we can't find a value proposition that allows them to stay around longer or incentivizes them to stick with us another month or two to synchronize with the value. And we'll cover some of the themes that our patrons have shared with us. But ultimately, we believe that the existing price is undervaluing the community center. So I'm not too worried about too much churn. I am worried about 1 or 2 individuals kind of sounding the trumpet and maybe poisoning some of the messaging. So we're really going to lean into the messaging about value, about what's available to offer.
I had a question on the rates piece, and particularly the fitness classes portion, because you mentioned that it would be an add-on charge for the day pass, and for the insurance members will be an add-on charge or option with just the regular membership as well. Or
So if I communicate that, I misspoke, not the day pass, but paid members, direct pay memberships are getting an
Okay.
increase in the fitness element. If you pay $9 to come to the Powell Community Center, you get access to anything and everything within those doors for the entire day.
okay, so direct pay members is what we call just the regular membership, right? Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. Great clarification.
I have a couple questions. The first one is, what are 2 per month? What what does that mean? You get to take 2 interval classes, like the whole class, or just 2 particular day classes? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
That is a great point of clarification, because what's unique about our seniors is that they have an interval class option, right? And so when some of our senior members show up to the community center, they say, I want to participate in chair yoga. They get a 2-week, like Monday, Wednesday, Monday, Wednesday. And so that's essentially one class, right? However, every other fitness class, aside from those senior unique ones, are really just day of 1 hour access to in that point in time.
So when you're talking about 2 per month, you're talking about 1 hour class, period. 2 hours of class for that whole month.
So it's kind of nuanced, and we may have to flush it out. But initially, for clarity purposes, we were limiting 2 classes for senior insurance members, right? And then 2 classes for direct pay monthly or annual members. And so if they're not a senior, they don't have this bucket of this group class for like 4 days. And so we would treat them 2 as 1 hour, right? 2 hours total. And then for the seniors, it could be 2, depending on which class they wanted, or it could be that block of 4 hours. And so we would just have to be very clear and make sure that we're tracking it well.
Okay, so how many, your N is 436. What is your total utilization for the PAL Center?
For
In any, how many people actually pay to go there?
Yeah, so right now we've got about 4,000
How many?
insurance members.
Uh-huh.
And then we have roughly 1,250 paid membership, so direct pay families or individuals.
So this isn't, this N is.
So this,
That's just a survey that was done those are the survey responses for a survey that they sent out last August.
So only 436 people responded
Correct.
out of 5,000?
right.
Mhm. Okay, and what would an increase in income mean for, what are you going to do with that increase of income that you're asking us to pay?
So that would offset the expenses that the general fund for the city of Mission largely covers. And so really that would take off the pressure from the general fund and allow the city to focus those dollars towards other priorities. Yeah, so it's really important to us, because the last thing we as Parks and Recreation want to do is be an anchor on any other program or something.
I think that when you're marketing something like an increase, I think it would be beneficial to say that, but the other part of it is, so I'm paying more, what does that mean for me? I'm definitely not getting more access, because you're limiting how much I'm going to get, the fitness classes.
Mhm.
So what does that actually mean to me?
Yeah. So the reason we're doing this all at the same time is because you're getting an extra day of access to the Powell Community Center. And that really, as you can see here, number one, we didn't prompt any part of this survey and say, hey, would you put these in a priority list? We didn't put any prompt out there. These were 84 unique individuals out of a group of 430 plus that said, open Sundays, please. That's the most important thing you can do to create value for me. And so that's, I think that's pretty strong value increase.
Brian had a question, but you
Okay.
have a quick related one. Yeah.
I have forgotten this number, but you said that the goal is 70% cost recovery. Where are we now in relation to that goal? I know that you mentioned it in the feasibility study, but I don't recall.
Yeah, so I know when first year doing the feasibility study, I think we were as low as 35%.
Prior to COVID, so we've had ups and downs. I think our high point in 25 years has been in about the 85% range. We've seen things like when Planet Fitness opened, we saw it's kind of a downturn. We've seen slight downturns as Matt Ross came online, Miriam Community Center came online. COVID was dramatic decreases for us. We went about 3 years in the 30% cost recovery range. We ended last year at about 60%. And so we're already trending in a better direction to get back to that 70% cost recovery goal.
I had another one. Sorry. I don't think you were ready for questions because you were like, next slide. And we were like, we're taking advantage of it. So here we are. My last question. I know that we're even with the price increases, we're still going to be the most competitive in the area. But have we given any consideration to members of our community who will not be able to handle this kind of price increase? Like, do we have a program for them to apply for? I don't want to call it hardship, but that's the fastest way to say it.
We call it a scholarship program. And yes, we do have that in place already.
Perfect.
And we've been able to fully fund everyone who's approached us with a scholarship inquiry, which is wonderful. Summer camp is probably the most common scholarship program application. In any given year, it ranges from 3 to 12. And probably with memberships last year, I think we had 3 or 4 that applied for a scholarship. So I anticipate that we'll get that inquiry. I've shared that out in our constant contact messaging so that we're making it more pronounced leading up to this. And we're also including it in the adventure guide that's coming out here in the next month. And so we'll make sure that those who financially are at a disadvantage have the opportunity to attend. You're welcome.
Josepha has shamed me into keeping my comments to the end.
Oh,
wait.
Well, I have a question. And you may go. You sure? Okay.
I may answer it. You may.
Maybe you covered this and I'm just not I don't know. Anyways, so let's say I want to take unlimited amounts of classes. Is there kind of like a fee that I could pay monthly to take as many?
That's a wonderful segue.
Oh, great.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryherd, right on cue. So
Next slide.
So we've got, thank you. Thank you. So we've got 4 slides that roughly tell the same story, but in different ways. They're broken down. The first slide is resident monthly. So how's that look per person or per membership type and each month for residents? The next slide after that is going to be non-resident monthly. And then we'll flip back to resident annual. So it's a bigger chunk of money, and then non-resident annual. So here you look on your slide deck as well. You see PCC current. That's where we are right now. And that aligns with the light blue of Miriam and the light red of Matt Ross.
Actually, it doesn't, because our current is all inclusive with classes.
Correct.
So our light green aligns with the dark blue where they have their fit pass included, right? Or the dark orange.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. We've looked at this so many times.
So many times. So yes, thank you, Laura. And that's where the 50% cost difference comes from, right? It's that light green compared to the dark blue, and that's roughly half the size, right? And so what we're starting in May is the mid-level green that's right next to it. And that will be the new cost of a membership without fitness classes.
2 fitness classes per month.
Yeah, without unlimited fitness classes. The darkest green is going to be a $15 fit pass. So if it's an individual membership, it's $15. If it's an adult, $15. If it's a 2-person, $15 for the first person, $7.50 for the second person. Okay. If it's a family, $15 for the first person, $7.50 for the second. Because we don't anticipate, first of all, we don't have that many children attending any of our fitness classes, and we don't anticipate that there'll be an increase once we implement this. So obviously, just like anything else, we'll evaluate that. But for right now, it's a $15 Fit Pass cost.
You don't have to buy a Fit Pass every month if you're having it, right? Is that true?
Or, so there's a $15 cost.
If I'm paying a monthly membership, I can choose to add that pass each month.
That's exactly right. Yeah, so if you say you only want to work summer months and do like yoga in the park or Tai Chi in the park just the summer, then it'll be $15 June, July, August, right? And then you can discontinue the Fit Pass. So yes. So we feel like even with the Fit Pass, we're still below Miriam, we're still below Matt Ross, which is great. We fully anticipate that some members will only attend 2 classes, right? Or 1 class, and they'll continue at the new proposed rate. So if you go to the next slide, these numbers are just a little bit higher because we charge a non-resident rate fee that's a little bit more than what our residents have to pay. So pretty similar comparison there. If you go to the annual, next slide. Annual, you'll see even more cost difference between Merriam, Matt Ross, and Mission. And we believe that's just because they place a higher premium on that Fit Pass element, maybe for additional family members. So any questions with how that kind of maps out? I didn't want to get too deep in actual dollars and cents, but and then the last slide, next slide, is a non-resident annual picture. So I think it's great for us to finally lean into what we actually have to offer. I can't tell you how many times anecdotally people come to us, oh, we love the Powell Community Center. Thank you for investing in this. There's no doubt you care. And that's why people stay with us, right? But ultimately, price is an indicator of value. And if it's too low, then some people just don't even consider it, right? And then if you're too far out of whack, people anecdotally may go, oh, well, there must be a reason. I'm not going to even try them out. And so now we are at least in the same discussions as everybody else. What's nice is because Sunday we're opening, now you're comparing apples to apples between all 3 of our regional competitors. So it's a lot more convenient for the patron to kind of decide from there. Next slide. This brings up our final implementation timeline. These are just more massaged and specific in terms of dates, but we'll send out messaging this weekend, follow-up messaging next weekend. Signage will go out in the community center in form of hard copy, digital signage. We'll begin opening Sundays on May 4th and align that with registration for participation in some of these new recreation programs. We'll launch the membership retention program mid-June, conduct mid-year eval in July. We're going to be taking monthly feedback surveys so that we've got continuous data that kind of, and we probably, yeah, we've said a monthly feedback, but obviously that's going to come in weekly as we just continue to get respondent data. So sorry, I'm writing a note. Q4, conduct new member referral campaign, and then it was cut off, but the last one was Q4 25, Q1 26 is analyzing patron value feedback operating expense increases in conjunction with regional competitor fees, because we know that Merriam, even as much 3 months ago, was talking about raising their fees. And so we'll determine what the next step is for how people perceive the Powell Community Center. If there needs to be a fee adjustment, then we'll have those discussions and do a proper analysis beforehand. So happy to take any additional questions.
Brian, did you want to go? Okay, and then we can go to Debbie. Sorry, Debbie.
Mine is it's okay. It was deserved. Yeah. Did I hear correctly that there has not been a price increase since 2010?
2010.
Okay. So I don't consider it looks like it's roughly a 20% price increase.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was the recommendation in the feasibility study.
Yeah, that to me over a 15-year period does not seem to be unrealistic, especially when accompanied with an increase in the expansion of hours and the different classes offered. So I just appreciate the thoughtful approach to it. You're probably already planning and thinking on this. I do think just from a public perspective, swallowing a smaller, more regular price increase is probably easier than a 20% all of at once. So if we can look to get back to just a more regular, smaller incremental increase, I think that would be good.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea between the Q4, Q1 analysis and deciding whether we need to adjust it in year one and, applying all of that feedback. And we've adopted the same method in the Mission Family Aquatic Center, where we've had just an incremental increase every year instead of that, huge one. And that seems to have worked well.
Thank you.
Debbie?
I would like to see the next Mission magazine have a feature on this, and how we market it makes a big difference in terms of how people accept it, an increase. The adding Sunday is a major, people all over have commented about not having enough access on the weekends.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that in concert with raising the price, that kind of offsets each other. And I think that's really good. But I think how we market it, whether it be on the website, part of an article for the Mission magazine, Ben. How we present it, I think makes a big difference. We're excited to have you all back, and this is what we've talked about, and we're happy to offer new programming on Sunday and some great options for family time at the community center.
Sounds like you're joining our committee on messaging. Thanks, that's great
Yeah.
feedback.
Well, I too want to chime in on how excited I am for you to be open on Sunday for my personal benefit, because I'm usually tired on Saturday and then I wake up Sunday going, gosh, I could go to the gym, but it's closed. So thank you. Now, don't count the Sundays I show up, but
Okay.
just putting it out there that,
And I mean, we talked about that. Sometimes the value is just having it available. It's not necessarily taking advantage of it every time. But
absolutely.
yeah, that's important.
And then I'm just pleased to see how the recommendations from the study are being implemented, because that was a long process and I think we got a lot of good feedback out of it. So thank you for implementing it and taking your time to implement it thoughtfully.
Thank you.
Yep, Debbie. Will we be seeing in the next few month time frame an increase in rental?
So we actually increased the rental fees last summer. And so we, just like we do at the Family Aquatic Center, we do evaluate that annually with our regional competitors, and we'll stay in step with them. Yeah.
I suppose in the next month or so, we'll be hearing more about the upcoming swim team and what we have to offer for the swim team.
Yeah, for Mission Marlins, the swim season's about to kick off. It's pretty exciting.
Thanks, Penny.
You're welcome. As you want to kick off first?
Let Mary ask you, but
This one, this is
Okay.
just a discussion item, so we won't, it's just no action on this. But yeah, I think that concludes that discussion item. But before we adjourn, Ms. Smith, are there any department updates for the community development?
We do, and I think in the interest, we, full agendas this evening, which we recognize. So we've got Penn, Stephanie, Chief, Robin have some brief updates, and then we won't have any at the end of the Finance and Admin Committee meeting.
So speaking of swim season, this entire month, we're having a early bird pricing for the Mission Family Aquatic Center. So April 1 all the way to the end of the month will be 10% off. That 10% is in the pricing right now. So you don't even need a discount code to enter in online. You just register online, call us. We'll take care of that and process it. That we do have, if you're a PAL Community Center member, you do get a discount, a 10% discount through the entire season. So if people don't want to take advantage of the first month, then slow play it and get it month 2. Second announcement is this is the month of Easter. So we have our Bunny Extravaganza celebration on Saturday, April 19th between 10 a.m. and 12 noon. So we'd love to see you all out there with littles or friends of littles and watch them get as many eggs as possible. Is that?
There are egg stuffing opportunities between now and then, and if you are interested, just send Penn an email.
Yeah,
message
we'll
and
take as many hours as you can devote.
to
I think we
stuffing treats. and
stuffing,
eggs.
yeah, we take plastic eggs and put about 5 pieces of candy in each one. We have to do that manually.
That is still at Broadmoor, right?
Correct. Yes.
If you need volunteers during that time frame, during that day,
Anytime during, yes. Let me know when you're available and we'll set it up. Thanks.
And the Marlins are kicking off. We have our contract in place with them for this season, and they're going to be starting June 2nd. I saw something about swimsuit, try on swimsuits. There you go. All right, Stephanie, how about you wanted to talk about Public Works?
So before I jump into the fun stuff, I just want to say that Johnson Drive, if you noticed, at Dearborn was paved the other day. They will stripe it tomorrow. So that whole debacle is complete. And as you may notice too, we have a lot of continuing utility work going on in the city. Our 2025 street reconstruction project is due to start in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, they'll start at 61st Street, so over by the post office. So there's been some coordination going on how we can best meet the needs of our postal workers and how they can get in and out of their offices or their parking lot and get the mail to everybody. So, yes.
I have a question. There's a lot of detour signs on Johnson Drive, but it doesn't tell you where you're detouring to and what's closed. How could we do better with signage to let people know? There's at least 4 junctures of detour signs, and you don't know if the lane's cutting off, if it's off to a side street. You don't really know what they're for. And they may be Evergy, they may be, I don't know who they are. Brent, do you know who they are?
Is it on Johnson Drive?
Yes.
It's just because we're hard closing that whole intersection, so there's detour signs from both directions.
Okay.
So it just becomes difficult to follow sometimes, but it's, you know, we've got the message boards out, road closed, traffic. So it's just detouring around the block, but it's coming from both directions, so sometimes it just looks a little difficult that way.
Well, it looks like there's a street closure, but it starts up in my ward all the way down, so you can't really tell where you're detouring to.
It's just an advanced notification.
It's advanced,
And
okay.
then you're just following the detour signs if you see it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was closed. Was it Tuesday they did the mill and overlay at that intersection? And then tomorrow we'll finish with the striping. Then those detour signs will go away until the next project comes up. So the fun news for Public Works is we're going to host an open house this year on May 22nd, which coincides with Public Works Week. We're going to allow the public to come stop by between 5 and 7 p.m. to meet our Public Works team, explore the equipment we use, and learn more about the work that we do. Visitors can get up close with the equipment, ask questions, and snap some photos. And we're excited to showcase how we help make Mission a great place to live, work, and play. So you all are invited too. We'll work with our communication team and Robin to get some fun flyers and probably some FAQs and just fun stuff leading up to it out to the public. So stay tuned for that.
As many of you know, based on my very last minute invitation to you all for our business security presentation that we had on March 27th at the community center, it went very, very well. I believe we had 10 unique businesses that showed up, most of which who faced Johnson Drive. And we were able to, and we really focused on our small mom and pop businesses, our non-corporate businesses, because, you know, a lot of those corporations have policies and procedures that opening, closing, things like that. And wanted to just share those no cost and low cost ideas that we had for those businesses, because we all know that small businesses work on some pretty tight margins, and you know, don't feel like we need to go into a presentation and say, well, if you want to keep yourself safe, you need to spend $25,000. So it went well. Hopefully we can build on that and continue to get more and more attendance as the years go on, and do that in other avenues besides businesses as well that we do from time to time. So just wanted to share that with you all.
Chief, I really appreciate you doing that. It was wonderful. The officer, Mark, just did an outstanding job. And I think it was simple information, like you said, but it was so well received, and it started a dialogue that I think is so important. And it made me as a homeowner start thinking about some of the things, especially the side lights and going through them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Could you let us know at some point when we would be able to be involved with the self-defense course?
Sure. I will get that. And do you guys want one for by yourselves?
Just like a council self-defense. The governing body if possible.
I think that would be nice. I think it would be amazing.
That'd be fun.
I think that's a yes.
Yeah.
I got that down.
Thank you.
All right, Robin, you want to go?
All right, so piggybacking on Chief's information about their business meeting, we will be building a webpage related to all that information, so we can share that out with our businesses. So we have a email group of all of our local businesses, all of our businesses in the city, so we'll be able to send out that link, and then we'll share that on social media as well. Some exciting news that I told Councilmember Kring earlier, Popeyes will be opening this week. They said yesterday we're opening on Friday, and they said today we're opening by Friday. So interpret that how you will. But chicken will be available to you at Popeyes beginning on Friday at the latest. So it's very exciting. Two save the dates for me. One is April 26th, citywide cleanup. I know that for our council members, we sent an email out for you all to form a group and clean up one area of the city. But if you have residents or neighbors you want to share that with, or a neighborhood group, homeowners association, please feel free to share it there too. We have plenty of spots open on the Sign Up Genius. We're doing hats this year. So we have 3 years of shirts. Now we have 1 year of hats. So you can be like, maybe we'll do pants next year, and then you can have the whole fit. So we're really looking forward to it. Kickoff breakfast, music, group photo, and then clean up on Saturday, April 26th. And then a bit premature, but it was warm today. So Mission Market season is almost here. We're having great progress in securing vendors, market day sponsors. All of our musicians are booked for the summer, and June 5th, 4:30 at the market site. Thank you.
Brian, I think you told me yesterday, do you have any updates? You're making progress on your staffing. Yeah, that's all I have.
All right.
It is now 8:04 PM, and with no further discussion, that concludes the meeting of the Community Development Committee. Again, this video will be made public on our website at missionks.org. Thank you.
Anybody need a break?
No.
Okay. It is now 8:04 PM, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee to order. While this meeting is being held in person, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in the meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we will call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. Please contact the administration offices at 913-676-8350 with any questions or concerns. Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Ann Champosi,
Here.
Vaughn. Here. Loudon. Here. Ryder.
Here.
Green. Here. Schmidt.
Here.
Josie.
Here.
Carpenter Davis.
Here.
Our first item of business tonight is public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment now on an item not on our agenda tonight? Please note, public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Do not see anyone, so we will move forward. We do not have any public presentations this evening, therefore we'll move into our action items. Our first action item this evening is the acceptance of the meeting minutes from Robin Folks.
You draft minutes of the March 5th Finance and Administration Committee meeting minutes are included for review and acceptance in your packet tonight.
Does any member of the committee have comments or questions? Recommend consent. Our next action item this evening is for consideration of a master capital improvement program from Justin Carroll.
Good evening. This is the first of 2 items before you tonight. Well, presenting for council approval that we need for a future debt issuance. And so the first one is the master capital improvement plan. And so the reason we bring this forward is because back in 2021, the council adopted a charter ordinance exempting the city from certain state statutes regarding debt issuance. And so just a quick background, we do a charter ordinance is a way for cities to kind of exercise their home rule powers. They're able to opt out of what we call non-uniform state statutes. So in this case, we're referring to debt issuances. And so because of that, we bring forward this master CIP. And I just wanted to note too, along with that, that even though we passed the charter ordinance that opted out of that there's still plenty of accountability and transparency when it comes to the city issuing debt. So tonight we'll present 2 items that'll go to council this month, and then next month we'll have another opportunity to discuss this when we actually go with the debt issuance itself. And so for the master CIP, it's focused on 3 areas. And so it's street improvements, stormwater improvements, and what we've added to it is some police vehicles. And so the first 2 items should sound familiar. So the first one is, although we have in the actual, you'll see the CIP document itself has all of our capital improvements for the next few years. The primary issue for the debt issuance is for Johnson Drive. And so what we're looking at for that will be approximately $5 million in funding for that project will be funded via debt. And then we have stormwater for the other large project next year, which is the Rock Creek Channel repairs, which is a little over $4 million. And then what we've done is included in here is replacing 5 police vehicles and all the necessary upfitting equipment, as well as their MDTs, which are the police car computers, as well for the entire fleet. Traditionally, the city normally does lease purchases for our vehicles, but frankly, it kind of works the same way in this regard. It's for the first 2, the main projects, it's more traditional debt issuance with a 10-year repayment. This small police piece of it is 4 years, which is in line with what our normal lease purchase provisions would be. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So this is kind of in the next item, but we see a better interest rate essentially by including it in the debt issuance. And so those are the 3 main items that are in the master CIP. And so with that, that's what we would look for
approval on and kind of step one as we go to officially issue debt next month to finance all of this. So I'd stand for any questions as they relate to the Master Capital Improvement Program.
Thanks, Justin. Any questions or comments from the public? I don't see any. Any from the committee?
Anxious for that pedestrian walkway east of Riggs. Very excited.
So we're still getting the $6 million from the federal funding for Johnson Drive?
Yes, yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, this is in addition to, yep.
Our portion.
Yep.
And approximately 2 million in CARS funding for the Johnson Drive project as well. So it's about $8 million. $8 million of other people's money that are coming into the project.
Nice. If no other comments, can I get a recommendation on this, please?
Move to regular agenda.
Regular. Our third action item for this evening is consideration of a resolution to set the sale for 2025A general obligation bonds from Justin Carroll and Laura Smith.
All right, so again, it kind of touched on most of the points in this, but this item is just the specific actual resolution setting the sale for that we'll do next month for the bonds. And so again, it's the 3 projects. It's funding for Johnson Drive, Rock Creek Channel repairs, and the vehicles. I think I noted this, but the 2 main ones for the stormwater and the streets is more traditional. It's a 10-year bank qualified loan. So that means they are tax exempt. So we're right at that limit, which is where we want to be. And we do estimate, because we're including the vehicles in here, we'll actually achieve some savings versus about 3/4 of a basis point projected savings versus if we would have done a traditional lease purchase versus debt financing. And again, it'd be the same terms. So we're doing 4 years just like we would do on a lease purchase. We're estimating, the city's financial advisor is estimating about a 3.6% interest rate on the debt itself. And all of that is in kind of the specific attachment from our financial advisor, Bruce Ellers, and his firm, or Bruce Kimmel and his firm Ellers, and everything. And he is on the line tonight too. So if there's any technical questions kind of related to that, he could answer those as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the public? No. Any from the committee?
Just very quickly, I handed out at your place also, when we did agenda review this afternoon, Councilmember Chosy asked for kind of a snapshot of our existing debt on the street and stormwater side. So you have that photo. Our debt policy generally in the city is to try to retire debt on a 10-year horizon whenever possible. So that kind of gives you a snapshot. We've been working with Mr. Kimmel since last fall, really looking at financing scenarios, and these are certainly debt service payments that do not tax our existing commitments to other projects over the life of this. But that snapshot will give you kind of a look at what debt is outstanding. All of our existing stormwater debt will retire by 2029. And the street extends a little bit further just because we have issued more. We've been very aggressive in our streets lately.
Can you tell me what our current bond rating is, please?
I never get this right, and I should. Mr. Kimmel, can you help me out here?
Yes, hi, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything. Maybe somebody near a mic could relay it. Okay, I can hear you now if there is a question.
Okay.
What's our current bond rating, Bruce?
Yes, hi. Sorry about that delay. I cut out right at the absolute wrong moment. The city is rated AA+ by Standard & Poor's Global Markets. And as you may know, that is just one notch lower than the highest possible rating that a city could have, which is AAA. So you are very, very highly rated, especially for a relatively small community. It's really a testament to your financial management and good decision making.
And we do have a rating call scheduled on May 8th for this issue. So we will go for a new rating ahead of this 2025A issuance.
Great. Any additional questions or comments? Can I get a recommendation, please?
Recommend acceptance, regular agenda.
All right. Our fourth action item this evening is for consideration of a resolution calling a public hearing on a CID petition for 5101 Johnson Drive, also from Laura Smith.
Yes, thank you. So last month we considered a funding agreement, which is sort of the agreement that we enter into whenever we have a developer that has come forward and asked for incentives. We ask them to escrow funds to cover the cost of our financial advisor, our bond counsel, all of that review so that our residents and taxpayers are not footing the bill. For that, so the council approved the funding agreement for 5101 Johnson Drive, which is the former Wild Oats property. At last month's meeting, the developer has escrowed roughly $20,000 in funds. And so now the next step in this process is for the council to consider resolutions that call a public hearing on the Community Improvement District petition and set the specific date and time for that. It is not a negotiation of any final incentives. It is just simply so we can comply with state statutes and communicate when we will be holding the public hearing. The resolution would call the public hearing on the Community Improvement District petition for the regular council meeting on Wednesday, May 21st at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Sounds like no. So if no questions, can I get a recommendation, please?
Regular agenda.
Regular it is. Our next action item this evening is for consideration of a resolution calling a public hearing on the division of the Rock Creek Redevelopment District 3B and a TIF redevelopment project plan for 5101 Johnson Drive.
Yes, similar. This is all related to the same project. The developer who's acquired the property at 5101 Johnson Drive is looking to renovate that property, existing building for retail use. And again, this is kind of a statutorily required step to call the public hearing on that. The property is already in an existing TIF district. And so this is consideration of a specific TIF redevelopment project plan for 5101 Johnson Drive. Again, calling the public hearing for May 21st, city council meeting at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Any questions on this one? Nope. Can I get a recommendation on this?
Regular agenda.
Regular agenda. Our sixth action item this evening is for consideration of changes to the city's personnel policies and guidelines from Justin.
So this is an item that we typically try to do a review every year, and we bring forward to the council any changes to the city's personnel policies and guidelines. Didn't quite hit that deadline last year with the transition and everything like that, but we're bringing it to you now. And so I'm not going to walk through everything in here. The chart and the action item kind of outlines the major items, and then we had the whole red line document in there as well. You can see it. I mean, it's a pretty comprehensive policy. I think some of the highlights to kind of note, there were a lot of technical changes in there. We had like dated position titles and stuff like that that were cleaned up. One of the things we had to change was there's updated federal guidance as it relates to parental leave policies. And so we've done that. That was one that was kind of outside our purview that we just needed to include. And then a couple city policy things that we just kind of beefed up or clarified that I'd kind of point attention to. One of those is we just incorporate into the policy. We have a zero tolerance policy now for any positions that were required to have a CDL. They are subject to random drug and alcohol testing from the Department of Transportation. And so zero tolerance, meaning if there's any failures on that, if a positive, essentially, that would result in termination. The other one is just another piece that we clarified in terms of eligibility for any employees to receive a promotion, just putting some language in there, just noting that if for whatever reason, if there was an employee that had had any disciplinary action in the previous 12 months, that they wouldn't be eligible for any sort of promotion. I think that's kind of it. We had another one, we just clarified some of our leave policies and cleanups and stuff like that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on anything specific we're recommending with these changes.
Thank you, Justin. Do we have any questions or comments?
Sorry, who does your testing? Who administers that?
Oh, I can get you the, it's either KU Midwest or I think so.
So they come out and do it?
Yes.
And they're the ones that make the schedule?
Yeah, so we, you might be able to, it's
Yes, so
quarterly that they have
it's
to.
quarterly random drug testing
Yep.
for any employee with a CDL, a commercial driver's license, which is only our public works field crew.
Yep.
So we do pre-employment drug testing on every position, full-time, part-time in the city. And then we do post-accident testing and then the random drug testing for those with the commercial driver's license.
A reasonable suspicion would be the other one too.
Any other questions or comments? Yep, Debbie?
I just have a comment. I think I've added this or asked about this before, but when we get into an awards program, I would really like to look into implementing an on-the-spot award.
The bonus or a bonus. Okay.
If someone does an extraordinary job, having a pot of money to allocate for special consideration for $250 is much less burden on the city than doing it in the long term.
Surprisingly, it's not always well received by employees because of the tax implications.
It does get taxed.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, it's gift cards, bonuses, on the spot type things. And I think there's absolutely a way to incorporate that. And we do really try to do employee recognition wherever we can. But it's been fascinating to me over the course of my career to watch what happens when you try to really implement employee recognition and reward programs, because they backfire on you sometimes, not all the time. But I think we have to look at that feedback as well.
And slightly related to that exact issue, when we do the benefits renewal package, I don't know if, a subtle item that's in there is we talk about the wellness program and the wellness incentive. And that is, we just actually have looked at that program again, but that's a comment we get is if you do everything, you get a $400 wellness incentive. And one of the biggest comments we get is, well, after taxes, it's not really worth it for me to do this stuff. So it trying to thread that needle, and more tools in the tool belt are helpful, but yeah, that is a comment we do get.
Any additional questions? If not, I'll.
Yep, just a comment. In the past, when I worked for a corporation, they would give you a $500 bonus. It was actually more than the $500.
Yeah, you can gross up that
Yes.
amount.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And sometimes that, makes it feel like you're actually getting your bonus.
Yes.
Can I get a recommendation on this, please?
Consent agenda unless,
Consent?
yeah.
All right.
I'm
Great.
for consent.
Is that
Let's
consent? Okay.
see. Our seventh action item this evening is for consideration of police department vehicle and equipment purchases from Justin Carroll and Dan Madden.
Good evening. As some of you may recall, a year and a half or so ago, we were up here with a similar situation after a vehicle crashed into one of our patrol vehicles. This most recent one occurred in February of 2025, where a vehicle struck one of our patrol vehicles parked on the side of I-35. Fortunately, no serious injuries occurred, but that did result in the vehicle being a total loss. And while the supply chain has improved some, not all that well for police vehicles, we got lucky and received a call from the fleet department at Shawnee Mission Ford saying that they were going to have a police interceptor available for purchase. So in order to accomplish that, we need the approval to proceed with the purchase of that vehicle as well as the related equipment that goes into it. As mentioned in the action item, the vehicle that was wrecked was a 2018 model. And as you know, manufacturers do, they change the body style and the measurements and things like that from time to time. And some of the equipment either doesn't fit or was due for replacement anyway. So the cost for the actual vehicle is $47,406, and the cost for upfitting that vehicle, including the equipment and labor, is $26,467.44. Be happy to answer any questions.
Chief, any questions related to this? Nope. Can I get a recommendation, please?
Move to regular agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our final action item this evening is for consideration of a resolution declaring surplus property, also from Justin Carroll.
Another housekeeping item, this one we try to bring forward usually twice a year. So this will be the springtime version of the surplus equipment resolution. And so just noting all of the equipment that we're looking to get rid of, and we bring that before you per city council policy. And I think the biggest item we would note on there would be is surplusing now the damaged vehicle. The police vehicle, that is. So
Thank you.
And just for the benefit of some, we can't dispose of anything that is city-owned property until we formally declare it surplus. So even if it's not usable to us, even if it is a broken desk chair, it doesn't matter. We have to take it through this process and then we can get rid of it.
Thank you for that. Yes, Debbie.
yeah, I mean, just within the standard that just kind of they're seeing in the market for the city of Mission specifically, no. I mean, we haven't seen anything too crazy. If you recall, we did switch providers actually and went to the pool system now with NPR Midwest Public Risk. And there was some tweaking in there, but with the vehicle coverage, both the city's previous provider was Travelers, now with NPR. We did see a move up in deductibles, but that was not specific to Mission. We're seeing that on local government in general. So nothing too crazy on that front.
There are no further questions. I'll take a recommendation on this.
Move to consent.
Consent. That concludes our action items for the evening. We have one discussion item tonight, an update on the Millhouse redevelopment agreement and amendments from Laura Smith.
Yes, thank you. And you may see a familiar face sitting towards the back of the room. Devin Coffey with Millhouse is here with us this evening. We went through the process of negotiating a tax abatement project for the Mission Beverly project, which is Millhouse's project across from the community center between Beverly and Dearborn, for one multifamily building with about 1,500 square feet of retail. And then a second building on the south side of Martway for a total, I think, of 207 units, 260 units, 264. And so the plan was to get through the approval of the incentive process for the tax abatement, which occurred. Then typically the developer and their team would go into development of the construction drawings in order to be able to submit for a building permit. And I think initially when the development agreement was negotiated, I believe Millhouse was anticipating closing on the several properties that they were working to assemble to accomplish this project by December of last year. Kind of the same time, close on those properties, submit their building plans to the city. Their construction or development timeline in their redevelopment agreement anticipated a construction start date in April. I believe starting in about November of last year, and Devin can fill in all the blanks after I give the quick overview. As they were working through construction drawings and working with the utilities to finalize those, they encountered some really significant differences in terms of where particularly water lines were located based when compared to Water One's as-built or drawings of record. So there have been some significant infrastructure costs that have been identified as they've worked through these, along with some other things, and I'll let Devin elaborate on that. And so right now they're looking at a gap in order to hit their targets with their investors to be able to move this project forward. We have been working with Devin and her team, Mr. Kimmel, Mr. Wempe, and Ms. Perez at Gilmore and Bell, kind of looking at what options we might have. Obviously, the council negotiated very specific terms as a part of that development agreement, but we've tried to be creative in looking at ways that sort of maintained the spirit and intent of that deal, but perhaps would allow the Millhouse team to close that gap and actually bring that project to fruition. So why don't I stop there, and Devin, if you can just kind of elaborate a little bit, and then I can talk about some of the options that we've looked at or tossed around or whatever you're most comfortable with.
So, hello, Devin Coffey, Millhouse Development. Yeah, it's late and I don't want to belabor this too much. Laura did a great job kind of breaking it down, but it was November 18th when we found out that there was a big discrepancy between the as-built and what our survey said. The survey said that the water line in Dearborn was out in the street. It's a 24-inch water main, which is kind of like a superhighway for water service. We went round and around with Water One, had months of poor communication with them. Laura was helpful in getting that kind of kick-started. They really felt like they weren't at fault. They thought they knew where the line was, and they were just kind of like, it's in the right of way, so it's public, so we don't have to do anything. We're like, well, even if it is in the right of way, it's a massive water line that requires a 15-foot setback. So it's still, your 15 feet is going to be encroaching into private property, which still encumbers legally our ability to transact on the land. A title company won't issue title insurance for it. A lender will not issue debt for it. So we're like, we have to get this resolved. There needs to be an easement in place. You should have compensated these people that own this property if you're, basically taking their land. And they just really weren't responsive. So we went through months of exercise thinking we were going to have to redesign the building, which was going to mean we'd have to pull it back in. We would lose a bunch of units. We'd have a really expensive redesign process. And then future loss of income, which would greatly impact the, the yields and the feasibility, the long-term value of the project. Luckily, what I did was I submitted an online message to the board at Water One, and it lit a fire. I think it kind of upset some people, but we got what we needed. We got some traction with them, and since then things have been going very well. And we've kind of pivoted back now from the redesign to moving forward with the relocation, which is great for the city because Water One told us this line is the oldest line in their system, even though they had no plans to relocate it anywhere on the horizon. Oldest line in the system, dangerous. I think, Laura, you mentioned
It's the companion to the Outlook.
I was going to say, I
screen
think you've had experience
that
with
you've had
this.
exposure with. So that one goes into the facilities up at 53rd Street. This one comes out of and serves but the same size. So same size 24-inch transmission main.
They told us it's a catastrophic failure if it fails. We're like, oh, great. So that's going to be right next to our building. Awesome. Yes.
Not have an inventory of what pipes need to be replaced at certain junctures of.
Oh, I think they do have a list. Yeah, I mean, they do. They just, for whatever reason, they do inspections. I think they said every 10 years. And if the integrity of the line seems okay when they do the inspection, it gets kicked off and it doesn't get dealt with.
That's almost verbatim what we were told on the
Okay.
call with them about because of the age of this line. And so they check on them periodically, but really until it fails, they do not have those significant sized transmission mains on a,
Like that, not charging bridges.
yeah.
So, again, I'm kind of breezing through this really quickly, but, there's been a significant delay. Back in November, we had to put the project on hold because we didn't know what we were going to do. And we were at 90% drawings, like we were literally ready to go in for permit. It was November 18th and we were going in for permit on December 15th. So we had stopped drawing and doing everything, saying we got to figure this out. We don't even know what this is going to cost. We thought it was going to be $1 million, it could kill the deal. How are we going to pay for it? What are we going to do? What are the legal repercussions? Lots of unknowns. So, it was great to figure out that we were going to be able to get it back going again. But in the meantime, we've lost some of the good faith with our sellers. We are currently out of contract with 2 of the 4 sellers. One of them just recently fell out of contract. The other one's been out of contract for a while. Very optimistic we're going to get him back under contract. His property is impacted by this Dearborn water line. So I think he understands that we're going pretty above and beyond to get this figured out because he's not going to be able to do much with his property either until it's all settled. So working on all that, we've, I think, Laura, you want me to go ahead and talk about the numbers? We're kind of settled in now after a few rounds of hashing out. Water One came up with like not only just this one water main issue, but about 18 other different issues in between Beverly, Martway, Dearborn. And then we also have an extension of the sewer line that goes up into that alley that is 58th Street, 58th Terrace. That's, it's not really a street, but it's 58th Street. Anyway, so offsite stuff that we're doing. With our, with our development agreement, we agreed with you all that we would, in exchange for the incentives, that we would invest into your, the sewer system. Yours is the storm version. The county's is the sanitary, you know, so we've got, essentially, we've agreed to 1.1 million in already, you know, investing in your community neighborhood improvements. That was a tough pill for us to swallow. I'm sure you don't remember the last time I was here, but I did ask for help with that at one point in time, because normally for a project that is going to deal with infrastructure, a developer will plug in about 1 to 1.5% of the hard cost for the project as a budget reference for what that typical burden might be for that type of an upgrade. A 1.5% budget figure for this project would be $855,000. We were already exceeding that at 1.1 million, which we've already agreed to and said we were going to do. This deal is bringing in an additional $950,000. We've been able to work through a lot with Water One. They've actually been really good to work with. They've helped us. They've given us leniency on some stuff that they would normally require, and we've gotten our number down from, gosh, what was it, like 1.25 now down to like 950. That includes the actual water main relocation, which is $520,000. We have a firm estimate from them for that. They also want us to relocate a fire line and a valve. We're holding $100,000 for that. We don't know what it is. We haven't gotten through the design with them yet. The water line is actually located further in than they thought. We did finally locate it. We had to hire a company, this Kissick Construction. I was getting ready to tell you, we've probably spent about $50,000 with them to track down where the line was. They thought it was basically kind of under the sidewalk. Our survey said it was out in the street. We're like, well, okay, it's not in either one of those two places. We went around with them for months. We hired Kissick Construction, and they had to come in. They used ground penetrating radar, and then they also go back and then they do what's called potholing, where they actually dig little holes in the ground. They do a visual assessment. So they found it to be like 8 feet in from where we thought it was, which is actually, it is on private property. So it's way in closer than we even thought. So we're going to relocate that, replace it, relocate it, move it back out into Dearborn. That's $520,000. We're holding $100,000 for the fire line and valve replacement relocation that Water One is also going to require. I'm estimating with Kissick, we've probably spent about $50,000 for all the work they had to do. We had 18 different conflicts that Water One identified between Beverly, Martway, and Dearborn and all around. So we went through with all of those different conflicts, and we were able to weed them all out except for this water line and this valve relocation. So, but that was a lot of digging and a lot of investigating that Kissick had to do. We're estimating we're probably gonna have to spend a couple $100,000 with our disgruntled sellers to get them back under contract and to compensate them. You know, they're paying taxes and upkeep on their property. We did experience a delay earlier in the project when we came in for our incentives initially. At the same time, the city decided to revamp the incentive program. And we were just coincidentally kind of asked to step aside for a few months and put our project on hold while y'all worked that out, and then kind of tested a couple of other scenarios ahead of that too. So the sellers are frustrated. They've got deal fatigue, and in order to keep them engaged, we're estimating about $200,000 there. I'm estimating 20 grand for legal fees. I know I've spent 10 so far, and attorneys don't bill very fast, so I'm probably going to get a lot more than that. But And then our design services for our design consultants that have been working through us, with us through this, trying to figure out like, what's the best thing? Should we relocate the building? Do we pull it back? What is that going to look like? You know, we've done a lot of value engineering too. We've kind of redesigned the garage and we made the floors, they don't slope as much. We've flattened them out. That just, it's not as a desirable layout, but we've worked through the building and found just ways to value engineer and pull out costs to make it more cheaper to build, basically. So we've exhausted just about every avenue we can to bring down the cost. And we've been successful to a certain point, but we're maxed out at this point, and we are still below the threshold that our investor that we brought on is willing to participate in. So we're looking for some help with this last chunk of cash that that we need to cover. And again, that's, you know, it's roughly, you know, $950,000. I think I'll let Laura get into the details on what we've worked on. But I think, you know, if we can possibly get pretty close.
Can I just ask one question?
Yes, ma'am.
The water line is on private property. Is it
It is.
residential, commercial? Or
Commercial.
It's commercial.
Yeah, it's the two office buildings that front Dearborn. They're both vacant.
I mean, this issue is a challenging and oftentimes frustrating one when you're looking at redevelopment. And so, you know, the drawings of record for utility companies may not match up, but they also do not like to do a lot of the work at the preliminary development plan stage in helping to evaluate where and find those where those discrepancies might exist so we can do a better job. We've had some conversations internally about how do we try to get to identifying as much of that in the initial stages when we're negotiating redevelopment agreements so that we aren't where we are kind of with this one today. So we have looked again, I think Devin has, you know, been very willing to ask, you know, what options we might have. I've been very willing to say, I don't think that one will make any sense for us, including sort of reopening the negotiations. You will recall that they have a 75% tax abatement over 10 years. And that includes them achieving 1 Green Globe status. Is that, I can't remember all the details, but generally that was the agreement. And no, there wasn't an affordable or attainable housing component associated with that. And then there was a $500,000 payment in exchange for the purchase of Beverly Park that would be made under the agreement. That payment would have been made at kind of in this April 1st, 2025 timeline. One of the things when they realized that they didn't have to necessarily pull back or lose units was looking at potentially eliminating the 1,500 square feet of retail. Some sort of mixed use component is a requirement of our MS2 zoning. In kind of my preliminary conversations with the mayor and just knowing where this council's appetite has been, that raised some red flags. Devin, they've had some experience in some other projects in other places with live work units. And so have made a request to convert that 1,500 square feet of retail to live work units, which, as I understand it, and I do not understand all the nuances of her pro forma, but helps with the underwriting in different ways than the retail space might. And I don't, how many live work spaces? Just 2 live work spaces.
The assistance is on the back end.
Do you want Devin to come back up to the mic? Yeah.
The assistance is on the back end with being able to have, you know, a better income stream from those 2 units than you would from retail that might sit vacant. When we take something like this to an investor, they often tell us that you can't even factor retail rent into your underwriting because it's so likely to probably sit vacant for a while. So at least this way we will have something in the pro forma that will generate income and for the long term. So that's the real benefit of the live work. Plus, I think they're cool, but.
We haven't seen, we know we have several of those in phase one of the lanes, which are still, I don't think you've issued certificate of oh, you did finally on those? Okay. We don't have enough experience yet to kind of see how those have translated or what the interest has been. I think similar to, so one option, if the council is so inclined, is to look at making that conversion. One thing we looked at in our negotiations with Block and their sort of one-time fee is we shifted that from the front end to later, a payment later in the process in order to just alleviate some of the immediate pressure on the upfront costs. I think we've tossed around several ideas. I don't have a specific recommendation, but I think that's, council was at least open to that on the Block project, you know, looking for some direction about whether that's something you would be open to here. The other thing we looked at and explored, and we've actually picked everybody's brain here on staff and included Mr. Kimmel, Mr. Wempe, really trying to be as creative as we can. For those of you who were around when the Roland Court Townhome parking lot slid off several years ago, we used the special assessment component of a community improvement district to make those private improvements on private property and then allow the property owners to pay those back over a 22-year period. That really would have had some merit, but we don't have the money to front that, and neither do they. And so we've kind of, I think, feel like we've kicked all the tires on that. In the case of Roland Court Townhomes, we were issuing debt to do that channel. That was about a $300,000 add to that project. And so we had the capacity within that debt issue to manage that. The other thing that I think everybody's familiar with the fact that we have this really large TIF district that basically extends along the Rock Creek Channel from Lamar all the way to Rowe underneath the Gateway site. We have several districts within that larger area, and then we have several project plan areas. Each time we have a specific project that comes forward, that gets carved out and creates its own essentially little project plan area. But the buildings on the south side of Martway are currently in Rock Creek TIF district number 4. And that district, which was established back in 2006, is generating increment because we've seen increasing property values. So there's some level of funds that have been building up over time. It's not huge, but those dollars are there. We can't do an overlay tax and tax abatement and TIF. So we had anticipated having at some point when this project moved forward, actually we would have to terminate the TIF district underneath where the 3 Martway office buildings were. But we have the option, if the council would be willing to consider it, sorry, but the pollen is getting the best of me today. The city would actually submit a project plan for that TIF district number 4 that would be focused on reimbursement of those public infrastructure improvements. And we would be able to then reimburse the developer for those costs. And there are a couple of different ways that we could do that. I feel like from my perspective, the costs, the investments that they're making in relocating the water line, in moving the water line on Martway around existing stormwater boxes are going to benefit anybody who develops in that TIF district number 4 in the future, as well as likely having some benefit for us in future street projects if we find ourselves in conflict with some of those utilities. So those were kind of our top 3. I think Devin had asked about waiver of our building permitting or plan review fees. That becomes a little difficult for us, I think, in terms of A, just setting precedent, or B, oftentimes on a large project, we may have to, and depending on where we are in staffing and other projects, we may have to actually outsource some of those things. And so we have to enter into a contract and incur expenses beyond just our regular salaries and benefits. That's kind of where we are. I don't know. It's hard to put a total dollar amount on all of those things. But we're looking for a little bit of direction or maybe comment from the council if you're inclined and have the appetite for us to pursue any combination or some combination of those. We can get back pretty quickly, I think, and try to firm that up, what that would really look like, and potentially even come back in May with a proposal. We know if the project is going to move forward, we're going to have to amend the development agreement just because of the timeline is sort of blown at this point. But we could certainly address those other pieces at that time as well.
Thank you. Questions? So Ben first.
I think well, my reaction is, yeah, I think what a mess, first of all. I agree with your assessment, Laura, that there are benefits to us for doing a lot of this work, and conversely, who else is going to come in here and not have this problem? So that stinks. Yeah, questions. So the live work units, is that something that can be designed for later conversion back to retail, or is that not going to work? I mean, once you're, lending is
Yeah,
whatever.
I'm not sure.
I know it's tricky.
It's not my best, expertise, but generally I think you're looking for more height in a retail space, and that's where we're saving money by not putting the steel in that gives you that extra height.
Okay.
So is it possible? Maybe,
Sure,
but
yeah, you can
I
shoehorn anything in,
wouldn't
yeah.
think it'd be likely,
Okay. And you're
you know,
saying that they won't just discount underwriting on the retail? They're just not going to give you any value for it at
yeah,
all?
typical. They just don't. They tell you,
Okay.
they just take it out. So, really, like, I can kind of quantify some of this stuff. So like with the park purchase delay payment that we were asking for, the way I currently have it underwritten, we would hope that we could pay that once the property is actually cash flowing, like making money, which would mean delaying it, to a year or so post our turnover, our actual final C of O, certificate of occupancy. I don't think that's necessarily what Laura's proposing, but that's what we're asking for, because it's that upfront cash that we need to help fund this. And that's the other issue with like the permitting fees. That's about, so the park was about $500,000. So delaying that frees up 500,000. With the permitting fees, that's a roughly 270,000. I think you gave me a number that I understand, like, that's not ideal for you guys because you have costs associated with that, but it's the only mechanism that generates cash for us to pay this. It's the only thing that frees up that funding for us to get this taken care of, because these are all pre-development dollars that need to be spent ahead of closing. So we won't have any loan proceeds coming in or anything to help supplement this. So that's why we're hoping to maybe figure out a way to make that work. And then the TIF funds, 140,000. So the 500, the 270, and the 140 gets us to like 910. This is really close to what we're trying to cover. If we can, push that 500 back far enough to where we can pay it out of cash flow and such. So, any other questions that I've?
Yeah. And Debbie?
Are the taxes current on the land that you own?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so I had one question with the pushed
Oh,
back.
we don't own it, actually. I'm sorry. We don't own it. They own it, but the sellers are paying their taxes, but they are current, but I just heard that we own, we don't own it yet.
And you're under sort of a half expired option contract or something?
Yeah. Two of them are, we're in very close communications with, with the sellers. So lost some sleep over that too, for sure. This has been a rough few months, but, we're plugging away, chipping away at it. So.
You had a question about both for Laura's version of the shifted payment and your requested shifted payment. When are you thinking on this new, with the schedule being blown, when would construction be completed, which I think is when Laura was thinking the payment would trigger, and then when would this cash flow date be?
So about a year later, right now the sellers are really pushing us to close in July, which is is getting harder by the day. Working through all the conflicts that I mentioned took a lot of time for us to work through. So everything's been kind of stacking up, but we still think we can close in July, which mean we would start construction shortly thereafter, like within the next 30 days. We've got roughly a 2-year construction term. And then cash flow is projected to hopefully start, within 14 to 16 months after.
Okay.
After
So
we turn over.
Construction complete July 2027. And Laura, am I remembering correct from our conversations that that's when you were thinking
Probably be
about?
more like September, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Summer, late summer.
Yeah.
Um,
Third quarter.
oh, is that when you were picturing the cash payment moving to?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I mean, I think we'd have to nuance some of that.
Yeah.
And I think we can get, like I said, I think we can get there pretty quickly if there's an appetite for us to really dig in and
Yeah.
try to come up with something
Sure.
that makes some sense.
And then my other question was sort of about Water One being difficult related to this. And I know you said that they were giving you a little bit of relief, but I'm curious, for replacement of the oldest line in their system, what they're really paying in terms of waived fees or any other contribution towards this relocation versus what is being asked of us and what is
They-
being asked of you.
Yeah, we've asked them for help. They just basically said no. They did say they would waive their design fees for us.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't value that because
Sure.
when they gave us the estimate, there was just nothing in there for that. But
Okay.
Well, and they have, I mean, I think as Devin mentioned, it took a long time for her to get their
Right.
attention. Originally, I think they were telling you they would not even consider relocation of the line until October
Right.
because of they
Their
needed
other
to be off
plans.
of peak season.
yeah.
But they have since come off of that and they have to do the work. Devin can't hire a contractor to do the water line relocation. Water One has to do all of that. So they're using her staff, but they have now come back and moved that up to April, which, I mean, I think we
yeah.
both were sort of,
We're looking at like an April to June window, probably where they
Yeah.
would do the work, which would still hopefully give us time to close in July, because we would want to close.
because the
after that, so-
October relocation, that time frame was really frightening.
Right. Because then construction gets pushed out to the next spring and
Mhm.
all that jazz.
And our
right?
sellers were probably gonna lose it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think, a lot of this, the bulk of this sounds like Water One. I think there are pieces that may or may not be self-inflicted. I mean, I think we've kind of known these are trouble sellers all along. So waiting till the last minute to close those deals in retrospect might not have worked out the best. But I mean, I think all the options that Laura presented, I'm amenable to personally. I don't like the idea of waiving the fees because that's essentially, $270,000 additional cash contribution by us basically for what's a Water One problem. But yeah, curious what others think.
Yeah.
Why don't you go in there? I've had
Right.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I think it's been stated several times now. The improvements, the moving of, it's going to be an issue to other people later down the road. And the fact that you've been able to hold together, at least hold together some of these sellers, is, like an impossible ask. So I just don't know, again, when we would have another opportunity for this to still kind of work out. So I'm, in agreement with the mayor. So.
The other thing I'd like to say is, I mean, we're looking at a $2 million investment now at this point. We're up from the original 1.1 that we agreed to now $2 million, which is like super excessive. There's not another project that I could think of that you guys would have come along that would be able to absorb that. So that's really how I'm justifying the 270,000 of fees. I know that that's kind of apples and oranges, but you're getting a $2 million investment in your infrastructure.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I think mainly for Laura here. So it sounds like largely chalking this up to this is the trouble we get into in built out redevelopment, and sometimes it just sucks and that's the end of it. Okay, the other thing you said,
Thank you for that concise and accurate summary.
Sometimes it just sucks. All right.
well, I like to get the gist. You said
Say-
maybe CID would be an option if there's any way to front load it. Is that not a reliable enough revenue stream for an SO bond or something like that? Or is that not even feasible?
It just, the problem is the timing of
Yeah.
this with We're at bank qualified, right? So we, the issue that you saw earlier on your agenda, what we need for the channel improvements in Johnson Drive and the police vehicles, we're
tapped out.
right
Yeah.
at that bank qualified. And so if we issue any more debt in this
And they don't
year,
care what we're paying it back with.
you know, I guess the question would be, we could look at, I don't know that it helps you to push that into next year. I don't think we have, I don't know. I mean, that would at least get us through our budget process. But, I don't know how to solve that.
Well, and I don't think the sellers of these properties are gonna hang around long enough for us to
Yeah.
figure out
Right.
that piece.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, we
Well, I'm
looked-
out of ideas.
we know, well, welcome to the club. But I think the more, you know, eyes and ears and things I think this helps to have some of this direction. Again, we can chase down some things that,
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, I'll
and-
put it more clearly. I am more than welcome to hearing staff recommendations because I don't think any of this is, we're far from ideal at this point, but
Yeah.
I don't want.
okay.
Are there any other options for private investors in this project?
I mean, it would just be someone that would just be willing to put cash in. That's not, I don't think so. I mean, just not the way it really works financially, but, you know, if it was easy, then, you know, probably our ownership group would invest something like that in there, but it's just too, yeah. It doesn't seem like it's an option right now.
I think, you know, we've come so far and this project really does, you know, use land that would have that has sat there forever. And we did hold you back in the beginning so that we could kind of work through our own issues. So I'm, you know, really wanting to do what we can to support you to
Thank you.
be able to complete this
I
project.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other?
That gives me
Comments,
enough
questions?
direction
Okay.
to go, so.
Well, this was a discussion item, so I don't need any recommendations here. I don't believe we have additional department updates.
Just one thing,
Just one.
I remember doing agenda review this afternoon. So you will have an agenda item at your April 16th meeting because we elect council president and vice president in April of odd numbered years. So that will be on the agenda for your upcoming council meeting. And that's all I have.
Right. If there are no other comments, it is now, what is this, 9:02 PM, and with no further discussion, that concludes the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee.